My name is Ter Louw. I'm one of the plastic surgeons at Muskegon Surgical Associates. We're here today to talk about Quervain's tenosynovitis. This is a common condition that people get in their wrist, right along the thumb portion of the wrist, right here. It is a repetitive motion injury. People often get this from work, from sports type injuries. Often new mothers will get this from lifting their baby. And again, it's a repetitive motion injury. It happens right along the base of the thumb here, right where your thumb meets your wrist. There's two tendons that run underneath here and get trapped underneath a pulley and become quite inflamed. And so the typical treatment for this, we start with rest, ice, and elevation, and then often progress to do something like an NSAID or ibuprofen. If those don't work and activity modification does not work, we then progress to a couple other options. The first option is typically splinting, followed by a steroid injection into the wrist itself. And then the last resort is a surgical intervention. And so surgery is typically an outpatient in-office surgery where you come in the morning, we give you a small injection to get you numb in the wrist, and then we make a small incision to release the pulley system that's right here. By releasing the pulleys, the tendons can move freely as they need to. And then your recovery afterwards, the sutures come out in about 1 to 2 weeks, and you're able to return to work after typically 2 weeks. Sometimes sooner depending on the intensity of your job. So if you have interest or you're concerned about this happening in your wrist, give us a call. Every consult is different. Every patient's wrist is different. We're happy to see you in the office.